What's going on, guys, and welcome to another ranking video. Today we're going to be ranking finally every episode from Series 13 Doctor Who Flux. So I know it's been ages since, it's been over a year now since Series 13 aired. I didn't finish doing reviews on them because I kind of got confused when we got to episode 3, which we will get to in this video very shortly. And yeah, because of that, I didn't end up, I kind of stopped doing YouTube on this channel at that point, and I haven't done a ranking of all 6 episodes from Series 13, but now I've come back to the channel again. We're going to get things going somewhat like used to be, probably not quite as often videos as I used to be doing, and probably not really any reviews and stuff, but I'm going to be doing rankings, tier lists, stuff like that. So we're starting today with finally ranking Series 13, all 6 episodes. I've rewatched all the episodes just a couple of days ago, watched them throughout the week, so they're fresh in my mind. I've even made notes for this, so we're just going to try and get through this, so let's get underway. Number 6. Once Upon a Time. So this is episode 3, slap bang in the middle of the series, and this is the one that I couldn't, it's one of the main reasons why I stopped making videos on this channel, because I didn't know how to review this episode. When watching it for the first time, there's way too much going on. It is an absolute mess. When watching it this second time, knowing how the series panned out, what some of the things that this episode was talking about actually, where they went, it's better. It's still a confusing mess though. You can't watch this episode out of context of the rest of the season. To be fair, I think there's only really 2 episodes in the series that you can do that with, and even those 2 episodes, there are bits of the Flux storyline in there. Although, that's just what they were going for with this series. I can't really take that away from this series and the episodes, but this one especially, you have to watch this one in order with the series. You just have to. It is so confusing. You've got so much going on here. You've got Vinder's subplot with his girlfriend Belle, or wife, whatever they are. That kind of all starts here, and I did like that subplot, but I felt like it was a little bit thrown into this episode with everything else that's going on. You've got the scenes showing the Doctor's original encounter with Schwarm and Azure, which I do quite like. But that's about that. Lots of over-explaining by the Doctor as usual. We'll see that a lot in these other episodes as well. The Doctor just really over-explaining stuff. It's just a Chibnall era thing. I also put that this has the opposite issue of most Chibnall era stories, that the pacing's too fast and there's too much going on, jumping from character to character, place to place, time to time in flashback scenes, and then randomly jumping back to Belle's storyline. Just, yeah, the opposite thing with usually its Chibnall stories are a bit too slow paced. This one is too fast paced and there's too much going on. The general plot's interesting, but it's just not done very well. And of course you've got the Grand Serpent's introduction, which I do quite like, and I like his character somewhat, although I think he's a little bit underused and just kind of random in this this whole storyline. But once again, it's just another thing that is stuffed into this story, and this story is just, honestly, even on second viewing, it is just a mess. Number 5. The Vanquishes. This is the final episode of the series. It had to tie up all the loose ends and all the things that had been going on in this series, and it didn't really do that, or at least it didn't do it well. This is one of the main examples of this series had too much going on for a 6-episode series. Definitely, 100%. Chibnall went way too far with this. So 3 versions of the Doctor that we have in this story, I like the concept. I feel like they just used it for a plot point, and all in all, I just felt like it was just there because the story needed it to be there, if you know what I mean. The Daleks and the Cybermen teaming up with Centaurs, I really don't like, especially the Daleks. It's just not something they would do without having some kind of stabbing your back kind of plan going on. It just kind of seemed really un-Dalek-like, especially even for the Cybermen didn't really work to me either. Kate grouping up with Yaz, Dan, Jericho and Joseph in the tunnels, I did like that. Jericho dying is emotional, but seems very clumsy, by him destroying his transportation ring. It felt like they needed one of the main characters from this series to die, and Jericho was the one that they went for because, you can't kill off Dan or Yaz because they've got more stuff to do, and you can't really kill off Vinder or Belle because of their whole story, so yeah, we'll just get rid of Jericho. Felt very forced. Ridiculous amount of over-explaining. I mentioned this before, even Kate Stewart has quite a lot in this one as well, but mainly the Doctor, just lots of sciencey chatter and just lots of over-explaining. I think that trapping the Flux in Passenger seems way too convenient and lazy, and it happens far too quickly and randomly. a terrible way to end this. You know, oh, this thing is going to destroy the whole universe. Oh, okay, we'll just shove it in the passenger and forget about it. Don't like that. I also don't really like how Swarm and Azure are also defeated way too quickly and abruptly. It just, once again, seems like, oh shit, we've run out of time. We've got to kind of finish these characters off somehow. Okay, we'll just do it. Feels really silly. Same goes for the Grand Serpent as well. I think that was also kind of just a bit randomly thrown in there at the end. So all in all, this isn't a good end to the series. Number 4. The Halloween Apocalypse. So we moved from the last episode of the series to the first episode of the series. And yeah, on first viewing, I did quite like the Halloween Apocalypse, actually. I was interested in what this whole Flux thing was going to be. Of course, it was setting everything up. We had introduction to Dan, and I really do like Dan. And even throughout the whole series, I've quite liked Dan as a character. He gives me, you know, Graham vibes. So I really do like him. You've also got Carvanista in there. I still don't really understand why Carvanista was trying to kill the Doctor at the start. Maybe, looking at the rest of the series, it has something to do with the whole division thing and him being annoyed that she left him and stuff, but it's not really fully explained. I like the Lupari as an idea, but I think they look a bit meh. When Carvanista's talking, his mouth is barely moving. It just looks a bit rubbish in my opinion, but I like them as a concept. Vinder's introduction is good, leaves us wondering what impact he'll have in the story. I do quite like Vinder as a character in this. I think he's interesting enough, all in all. The Weeping Angel taking Claire is an impactful scene and sets up the upcoming Angel episode. I like that as well. That's definitely a bit of a mystery, and it sets up one of the best episodes in the series. We'll see where it ranks soon. And then the Flux seems very threatening and makes for a suspenseful cliffhanger. I really do like that cliffhanger where the Flux is coming towards the TARDIS, and I don't really like the Doctor's line. I can't remember what she says now. Something like, I always wondered what it would feel like, or something in regard to dying, or, you know, fully dying and all this sort of stuff. And just the way that the Doctor delivers the line, the way that Jodie delivers the line, it's just, it seems a bit off. I don't know what it is, but yeah, all in all, I think this is a decent episode to set up the whole series. But with now the context of everything else that happens in the series, I don't quite enjoy it as much now. Number 3. Survivors of the Flux. Now this is one that I actually have higher than I thought I was going to have it, because when I rewatched this one, I enjoyed it more than I thought I did. Now this episode is very much, basically what's going on in this one is the Doctor kind of goes to the division and meets up with Tecteun, however you say her name, Tecteun, that's how you say it, I remember now. Meets up with Tecteun, and basically there's a lot of conversation and that going on there about what the division is, how Tecteun knows the Doctor and what happened there and everything like that, and I like all that sort of stuff. And then you've got Yaz, Dan and Jericho off in what ends up being 1904 for this story, because they've moved 3 years past where they got left in Village of the Angels, and they're trying to figure out clues of how to get back to the Doctor and how to, you know, save the world and what's going on and when the world's going to die and everything. And I actually quite like that. I've heard a lot of people say that they don't really like this episode, but I think it actually works quite well, especially for Yaz. Yaz kind of takes center stage in this episode, in my opinion. She does a really good job. You've also got the whole unit stuff. I like how they mention, it's unit getting closed back in Resolution is kind of re-explained here, and it turns out the Grand Serpent was the reason why unit was disbanded. I like that whole thing. I like Kate Stewart. She's very good in this. The Grand Serpent has plenty to do in this story. I like him as well. Definitely his best of the 3 or so stories that he was in, or maybe it's just 2 stories, I can't even remember, to be honest. Swarm and Azure using the Flux to harvest energy for a power source, I quite like that concept as well, although I don't think it's really explained what exactly the power source is. But yeah, the Doctor, I think Jodie's probably at her best in this episode. She has some really serious and angry moments with Tecteun, and I just think that's really good. Just generally very, very good stuff from Jodie. My one criticism would be, or one of my criticisms would be, that I think Tecteun is a little bit underused. She's kind of just there to deliver a bunch of dialogue to the Doctor and then die. But other than that, I actually quite enjoy this episode. Number 2. War of the Centaurs. So this one is the first kind of what I would consider somewhat of a standalone episode in this series. Now, yes, it still has a lot of Flux related stuff going on in the background, but I could probably watch this episode, now that I know everything that happens in Flux, I could probably watch this episode as a one-off episode and just kind of ignore all the Flux stuff going on. And it's a decent story. I love seeing the Centaurs back again as a villain. I mean, they were very much, I'd say, they weren't done well in, I'd say, mainly the Moffat era. Yes, the RTD era with the Centaurs two-parter did make them a bit too silly and comedic, but personally I actually don't mind the Centaurs two-parter. I think it was more with Moffat when they had like Strax that kind of ruined the Centaurs. I think once again here they are quite menacing again. They still have a lot of those silly, funny moments that I don't quite like. I think, you know, a couple of them here and there are okay, but they go on a bit too much in my opinion. All the characters getting split up I think is very entertaining, especially Dan. You know, he gets his frying pan and everything, which I love, and gets to see his parents, and the whole thing with Dan. I think Dan takes center stage in this episode. If anything, Yaz is the one of the three main cast that has the least to do. She sets up the rest of the story, you know, going to the temple, but ultimately she doesn't have a whole lot to do. I like Mary Seacole as a character. All in all, I do quite like this one. My main issue with this story is how did Logan set up all the explosives and the fuse all the way back to where they ended up without anyone seeing it? I don't understand how he managed to put all these explosives around the Centaurian ships and set a fuse all the way back to where they were standing on top of a hill way far away without anybody noticing that. It doesn't make any sense to me. Other than that though, this is a decent story. Number 1. Village of the Angels. This to me is by far the best episode of the series. It's probably in my top 5. It's definitely in my top 5, I reckon. Stories of Jodie's era, episodes of Stories era, episode of Jodie's era. This is just really good. Seeing the Angels back again after such a long time. We haven't had a proper Angel story since Angels Take Manhattan in Series 7. So to have them back again here is really good. And I think on the most part, the Angels are done very well here. They're scary. They're creepy. I like the stuff with Claire. I think that works really interestingly. Jericho as a character is really good as well. I think he's great in this episode. You've got Yaz and Dan off doing their own, well, not doing their own thing, but getting touched by an angel, sent back to 1901, and they've got their whole story to play out with. You've got Peggy, who's a bit weird, and she just kind of doesn't care that her grandparents, I think they are, have just died. She seems very oblivious to it, and just like, oh, well, they kind of deserved it. That's a bit strange, but yeah, all in all, great episode. The Doctor turns into a weeping angel at the end. I mean, that's pretty crazy. You've also got the Bell stuff, the Bell and Vinda stuff going to Pisano in this as well, which is okay. It's fine. You know, you got to throw a bit of the Flux stuff in there as well. I think that's decent. I love the angels coming through the screen and through the drawing. I mean, when the Doctor scrunches up the angel, throws it in the fire, sets the paper on fire, and then the angel appears on fire. I love that scene. It is a brilliant scene. It would have been nice if they didn't put it out so quickly, but I think just as a visual scene, it's really good. The angel talking to Jericho as well in his own voice is great. The whole stuff with the rogue angel and Claire is really good as well. I just really like this episode. It's honestly a bit of a breath of fresh air in this series. So there we go, that's all 6 episodes from Doctor Who Flux, ranked from worst to best. This video is quite a bit longer than my usual kind of ranking videos, especially with this only being 6 episodes, but I made notes of every episode and I wanted to talk quite a bit about them since it is only a 6 episode series, and since I have decent amounts of things to talk about. But yeah, that is my ranking. Remember, this is my own personal ranking, so please do respect that. I will respect yours. Please put your rankings down in the comments below. I'd love to see them. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.